Good afternoon, everyone, and also Happy New Year. For me, this is the first Triple I seminar of the year, or that I'm moderating. And so I can say Happy New Year, and we're still in January. My name is Ruth Kattamuri. I'm the co-chair of the India Observatory at the London School of Economics, which is located within the International Inequalities Institute. And I'm really pleased to be chairing today's seminar. It's titled Political Economy of Urban Land Grabbing in India, Local Developers, Fragmented Development, and Perils of Governance. It's great to see so many of you here for this seminar, and also those of you who have joined online. And the seminar is going to be given by Dr. Ajay Kumar-Gautam. He's a Sir Ratan Tata visiting fellow, postdoc visiting fellow at the III. Before coming to us, he has been with the Indian Institute for Human Settlements, which is originated first in Bangalore, but it also has offices in Delhi right now. And Ajay's work was based more at Delhi, and the research, which is based on fieldwork, ethnographic study, is based on neighborhoods in the outskirts of Delhi, which is not a very well-researched area, although it's a very well-developed area in the last 25 years. So as usual, there'll be a chance for people to pose questions following the presentation, and we'll take questions from both people who are in the room as well as those who are online. With that, I hand you over to Ajay.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, to be here today. And I'm really, really excited to present this work. So how to start? I mean, so people who are from India, they know what is happening in India. There's a lot of farmer protests that we have. There's a rising inequality, socioeconomic inequality. A lot of data is coming. And though there are the farmers' movements, but there are the voices which are not being heard. So this is in light of this everything. This is a case study that I would like to present to you. What is actually happening at the ground level to the people who are not the farmers, who are basically the landless people, and how they have navigating this inequality, socioeconomic fragmentations. So this is so when we are talking about urban land grabbing, so many questions will be dealing with who are the people who are grabbing land, and who are the people who have been facing challenges because of that, because of this whole process, because of all this gamut of processes happening, and what is the meaning of failure of governance there in India? So we have seen India didn't see good policies during COVID-19 like other Western countries that we have seen. So recently I produced one of my research work, which was published recently only, in which I talk about that how government has actually failed during COVID-19. And this is somewhere down the line is also related to that one, because in that paper I highlighted that how these dominant caste who historically was landlords, and now they have become they have come into this rentier economy. It was easy for them to navigate the COVID-19 than the people who could not become the landlords, right? So this is also one of the things here I'm talking about. It's not working. So yes, so this is I know most of you are economists, and most of your work is like very empirical and quantitative. So this thing is very ethnographic work, qualitative. I hope that you will enjoy it, because I'm trying to present the people's narrative, actually what they are facing on the ground. So I'm sure that you like it. So the projection of this thing, that this is urban land grabbing is a very pervasive phenomena in whole global South, and India is one of the case. And when we are talking about this urban land grabbing, we forget there is not much research on urban land grabbing in India, but there are the research in Africa and some other South Asian countries. So this is, for me, I think I've not read that kind of work that I've done specifically on the urban land grabbing, but there are the land grabbing phenomena which is hinging on rural aspect, rather than the urban land grabbing aspect. So as Ruth has told, that this is the case study is in Delhi NCR, which is the capital of India, and I have chose two districts specifically, Gautam Budh Nagar and the Ghaziabad, which is in Uttar Pradesh basically. And the kind of urban research or the urban scholars research that we have seen, they are basically based in Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, which is a metropolitan city. These are the cities which are actually urbanizing at a very fast pace, but we have not seen such kind of a research which can actually give you the nitty-gritties and the nuances of the field. Rather than just making, I would say the vacuous claim sometimes based in metropolitan cities and not able to study the peri-urban areas, right? Thirdly, it is talking about the micro-political economic process, not the macro. I'll discuss that why I'm talking the micro-political economy, not the macro. And this is, it is ethnographic research based on 85 participants and across, different kind of stakeholders are a part of it. It includes villagers, developers, lawyers, politicians, activists, because this topic itself is very controversial. Because when we are talking about the land, you'll have to understand there is a, the state is coming to you, and not many people are coming to you and talking about and give you the truthful information that you actually need, or actually, yes, yeah. So you actually, you want to write down in your paper, you want to do that investigative research to give you the factual information. So this is a projection. So what is the global perspective about this land grabbing? So we have seen that when we talk about this land grabbing, so most of the thing that we talk about, the big multinational companies, wealthy peoples are coming and they are just, taking control over land, right? And they are doing it basically, even the foreign countries are investing in Africa for food crops like biofuels, and also in the name of nature sanctuaries and conservative areas. And in India, Adani, Ambani, right? So, and there has been a number of cases in India where one famous case in India was a Singur, and there was a huge protest long back in 2010 when these farmers actually protested when that land was acquired for this by Tatas. And again, that case now, then this same Tata, because there were a lot of hula-boo about it, there's a lot of protest about by farmers in West Bengal, one part of India. So they have shifted that project to the Gujarat. That becomes one of the testimony or one of the case study how that point of time, the current Prime Minister of India, which is Prime Minister Modi, he used to be the Chief Minister of Gujarat, and he gave a lot of land to Tatas then at a very minimal prices. So, and same with the Adani, the same case with the Adani, that how this Adani has taken over the large parcels of the land in Gujarat and across India right now. So these are the things that when we talk about this land grabbing phenomena, the one thing comes to our mind that big multinational companies and the governments, foreign countries are investing in these South Asian countries. And second thing, when we talk about land grabbing, is that okay, some people are taking care of taking control over the land. So of course, definitely some people will be excluded. That's where my question is: who are the people who has been excluded? So India is a very diverse country, and one specific nitty-gritty of India is that we are not a class-based country. We are the caste-based society, where few specific caste are privileged caste, I would say, and people and large numbers of the caste are, I would say, the lower caste, underprivileged caste. Why I'm saying underprivileged? Because they do not have the resources. And the one specific resources that we need to have is the land. So though people are being excluded, like in this case that the state governments are investing and the people are investing, so the farmers get compensation, but the landless people do not even get the compensation in this whole process. Now, so that is one thing. And this global perspective on land grabbing is basically on the rural frontiers. So there's a little research on what does it mean by urban land grabbing. So the research has highlighted that this urban land grabbing is more fragmented and the nuanced. So if you really want to understand the urban land grabbing, you need to study the different actors who are involved in it, rather than the state or the multinational companies and all. So here again, this is my second hinge, that's the second hinge where my research paper or the research is based on, that I'm talking about that how it is impacting and affecting the landless people. And it is in the peri-urban areas. It is not in the rural frontiers. It is in the peri-urban areas where the urbanization is happening at a very fast pace, very rapid pace. Yes.
Clarification.
Yes.
So what's the difference between like land grabbing and land acquisition?
Is it different? I mean, the land grabbing, it required illegality. A land acquisition, maybe a state can acquire it, you know. So that is one specific thing. The illegality is aspect, it may come in the land acquisition, but when we are talking about the grabbing, it will always involve the precarity and the illegality of appropriating the land. And again, if you are talking about India, so again, the urban scholars in India, they have highlighted that when we are understanding the urbanization process in India, so we cannot understand the urbanization without understanding the agrarian system. The agrarian question is the urbanization question. And a lot of research in India, basically, as I've also highlighted in my introduction, is that they are doing research basically that how urbanization, land acquisition, land grabbing, land appropriation is impacting these farmers rather than the people who are not farmers, even in the definitions of the kind of policies that we have recently. So many of you might be aware that recently in 2020, there was a huge farmer movement, which is a PM Kisan bill, which we call in India. A lot of farmers came there and protested against these farm bills. But one specific thing which according to me is that no, these farm bills were so in some sort of sense, they actually define the people who are the laborers. They define them that they also require sometimes compensation when the land has been acquired. You know, so if you see, even the society sometimes is not very empathetic to other people who are laborers, historical laborers, right? And they do not have the land. And during the research has also highlighted that how these land-dominated caste has used this land in their favor over the period of time. They have become the rentier. They have also become the real estate developers. Many of them has become the property. They have become the politicians, and it is easy for them because they have the money. Because money is also very important to understand, because if you have a money, you have different resources at your hand to navigate different livelihood. But for Dalits, which is a landless people, lower caste people, that process is not for them. So yes, the same thing. The caste dynamics is really important to understand, and specifically how this is important to understand that how lower caste has been impacted by this urbanization process and the land grabbing phenomena. So I was talking about this. Most of the research is basically on the macro political economic process, how these states and the foreign countries are investing in these South Asian and global South countries. And why there is a need for a more micro level land transactions when you really want to have a good understanding about the urban land grabbing phenomena, because it's very nuanced, it's very fragmented, and the people who are involved in this process, their numbers are really high. It's high, so you cannot just have one angle to it, and you will have to understand the real nitty-gritty of that. And so this is one of the things. So yes, so I've already said that this research study is based in these two. So if you see in the pink, this is Delhi. In the side, in the green, this is whole Uttar Pradesh. So we have different states in the country, and every state has different districts. So I have chosen two districts, specifically Gautam Buddha Nagar and Ghaziabad. Both the districts, not for the comparative analysis perspective, rather to understand, because you will see that there's a continuous process of the developers, the people who are actually grabbing the land. I'll be dealing who are the people who are grabbing land in urban areas. That is a very continuous. So I'm not taking it. I'm taking it as a very singular entity, because the rising of building of illegal colonies, and the same developers are working at the same place. So this is also become very important in that thing, because it's a singular entity there. So it is so ethnographic field work. So I have taken a lot of narratives. It's basically, this research is narrative based what they feeling, what is their memories about it, how they are being affected, what do they think, and it is based on group discussions, semi-structured interviews, personal conversations, and the field observations, which is basically snowball sampling that I've done. Because if you are going into the field, you do not have the, you do have the important question in your mind, but sometimes fields tell you different stories, so that you cannot have them, okay, I'll go with the focus group discussion and I'll get all the answer. It doesn't work that way. So 85 participants were there. Already told, it was developers, it was local villagers, also the informants, there were the buyers, brokers, financiers, government officials, which includes Tehsildar, which we called land revenue officers, and also the district magistrates, 2 district magistrates, politicians, lawyers, activists, local journalists, and the police also. So, this whole research I have, there are the 5 themes. I've divided this research into the 5 themes. All the themes are very much interrelated. So if you will understand this phenomena, land grabbing phenomena, there is no one theme that we can understand. So these are the 5 themes that I'll be discussing. These are the findings that I have, and everything is interrelated to each other. So first finding is that how that from farmland to fraud, how the farmers have become the fraudsters over the period of time, and why there is a rising level of these illegal colonies are coming up. So of course, if there is a land grabbing is happening, the land grabbing is happening for a specific reason. So what is that reason? So that reason is that the people who are grabbing land, they are developing illegal colonies. When I'm saying illegal colonies, so they do not have the legal sanctity from the state to develop, right? So that is one aspect. And second thing is that how they are actually, appropriating that land, how they are grabbing that land, and who are those people who are, and how they are, who are those people who are grabbing this land in these local settings. And it's also not like that government is not aware about these mishappenings. So recently there was a National Green Tribunal's directive to state of Uttar Pradesh that something really challenging is happening in your state, so the things should be done. And I was talking to Rajendra, then he told me, and the National Green Tribunal is basically the environmental agency, so most of its directives is related to the environment degradations and then that or about that process. But when I was talking to Rajendra was saying that it is not only the environmental degradation, it is much more than that. Why? What he was just actually talking about, he was talking this land, and that the directives was about that there is a Hindan river in Ghaziabad, and these local developers was taking control of this land on the bank of this river, which we call the floodplain areas, and they are developing these colonies, and they are selling these plots at a very minimal prices, and they are and they're taking control of that land without paying any money to the government or money to anyone. So that was one of the aspects of that thing. And yes.
The land that they're taking
Yes.
belongs to the state or
It-
to farmers? Or
Yes. In this case, in NGT case, it belongs to state, because you cannot do anything because of the floodplain area. So you'll have to maintain it. So state, as far as as far as the law is concerned, yes.
So within your study?
Yes.
Within these 85 ethnographic thing, they're all, it all refers to private agents who basically take land that belong to the state without paying them, and then build these colonies.
They take land not only from the state land, they also take land from the farmers.
So it's both.
It's both. It's
So there's
both.
some private farmers that do they have titles?
Now they are not farmers, now they have become the developers. Because the people who have become the developer over the period of time, they were the dominant caste agricultural landlords. Now their land has been acquired by the state and they have got the enough compensation. So they do not have the land to field, right? So they are no more are the farmers. So now what they are engaged in, they have become these developers, local developers, which I'm calling in my research local developers. So not everyone can become the developer here. So I'll be telling you that how not everyone can become the developer. Why? To become local developer, first of all, you need to have that dominance, the dominance aspect of it, the power aspect of it. Even the outsider are not allowed to do that because they have the social network. Even their numbers in that specific areas are huge. So the few castes that I'm talking about, so they are the Yadavs, they are Gujars. These are the caste, Gujars, Rajputs, Tyagis. So if you see these places, Greater Noida and Ghaziabad, so these caste who were historically agricultural caste, now they have become the developers. No landless can become developer. In my second case, you will see that they can become the broker, but they were not allowed to become developer. Also because it required the money to become developer. Because even if you have captured the land, you need some money and you need some network of people where you can get hold of a lot of money to actually build that, and you can be a part of corruption in the government agency. Also, if sometimes if some farmers coming from a dominant caste have not got if their land is not acquired by the state government, so what they are doing in case of a Ramveer Singh from Chipiana village, he himself, because he's coming from particular privileged landowning caste, he himself is contacting these developers who basically coming from his own caste. If Ramveer is Gujar caste, so the developers he's contacting to these developers so that they can acquire his land and use that land, that land for this illegal housing, unauthorized housing. And why government has not acquired his land? Because his land was at very specific place. Like for example, like I've talked about this Hindon River where his land was on the floodplain area. That is also one of the case. So government did not acquire his land, but he is willing to sell his land now to the people, because government will not acquire. So only people who he can contact is these local developers, because they themselves coming from his own caste. So, and there is also a lot of violence, so becoming developer, doing these illegal activities. So definitely you will face some sort of challenges from the buyers also. So I've seen a lot of violence. If someone is complaining against them, so these dominant caste goons coming and beating those people up. So that is also one of the aspects. Also, the police is not doing anything because a lot of money these people are paying to police and other development authorities or development departments. Second thing, that as I've said, that how this urbanization is quite beneficial to this dominant caste. In this particular research, I've found there are some Dalit landlords. Of course, they do not have the large chunk of land, but there are few people who used to hold some parcels of the land. In this case is the Ram Singh, who hold 10 bigha of land on the boundary of these two districts that I've studied, both Gautam Buddha Nagar and Greater Noida. And there was and these people, these local developers go to, and they was really interested in his land. And if you see the laws in Uttar Pradesh basically, or laws in different states in India, if you are coming from a Dalit caste, you cannot sell your land to other caste, because there is also rising level of landlessness in India. So these laws is not a new laws, it's a very old laws. But now what is happening? So you cannot buy it. So what they are doing it, of course, one thing is the coercion control, putting pressure on these Dalit landlords, few landowners. And also, if you want to actually buy this land, you'll have to take permission from the district magistrates, which is a very high authority in India, who gives you permission, and under few laws. So what they are doing, they are giving a lot of money to the district magistrate, and they are actually misusing it. They are misusing in a sense that so once you take a permission, then you can have, but it's a very legal, very complex process, and it requires a lot of time. And so in this case, I found that they are doing it. So if they cannot take that land in their name, what they are doing, they are buying these lands from Dalit landlords in the name of Dalit, who actually is subservient to them, who is their servant. So in his name, they are taking that land and building these illegal colonies, unauthorized colonies, and everything. Also, I've already said that you cannot become a developer if you are from a lower caste, but you can become the broker. So if you see the lot of brokers in these areas, you will see the number of brokers. Most of the brokers come from scheduled caste, Dalit caste, the lower caste, right? And that is one of the aspect.
Brokers acting in that context?
Sorry?
What is a broker in this context?
Yes, they are brokers, yes, but not the broker for the illegal colonies. Many of these brokers are coming from lower caste people.
What do they do?
They sell these, because these are the cities are developing. So what happening? A lot of buildings are coming up. So they become the broker and they're selling flats and the property, but not in the illegal colonies. This is a different aspect altogether. So they are not selling these plots, but they are selling the legal authorized plots, legal authorized flats, right? Like we have brokers in UK, the same thing. But the dominant caste, very rarely they are the broker. But again, there is again a distinction between big broker and the small broker. So most of the small brokers are the Dalit brokers, lower caste brokers, and all of them. Second thing, like if you are a Dalit, so you will have to face these dominant caste rep because they will capture your land. They will use different methods to capture your land. They will take permissions from the state or from these officials. Also, in this research, I found that illegal colonies these people are developing. Most of the people who are actually buying these properties, small parcels of the land in these properties, are basically low scale income groups. They are basically coming from other OBC caste. In India, scheduled caste and OBC and other marginalized caste, right? So that is again a double sword that you see, that they are taking land from the Dalit caste at a very minimal prices, and they are selling to the people who are basically low income groups in India. And I've also seen, and there was a case in India, sometimes these colonies look very legal. So one of the case recently happened in India, in Lucknow, one of the district in Uttar Pradesh, where the state actually demolished that colony after 40 years. After 40 years, and no compensation was given to anyone. And who are those people who actually was affected by that demolition process by state? It was mostly when we did this, when we went to the field and when we asked them what is their basic caste and class background, most of them are actually SCs and OBCs, other marginalized castes, and nothing was given to them. So even the broker at these particular location, he was telling me, this Atul Pradhan, who is that these colonies that these people are developing, definitely in the future they will be demolished, and nothing will happen to the people who are actually developing it. End user will always be affected by it, and government will not give them any compensation because they have not given any compensation in this Lucknow case. So we are assuming their life is at a very precarious position if you study this whole process. And this is again one of the very how they are doing it, the mutation myth. Mutation in the sense that when you are buying some property, basically there is a process in India, or maybe everywhere it is the same, but in process in India is that first you register the property, and then there is a mutation process. So these local developers, what they are doing, doing registration is easy actually, because that is not something that you go with the documents and you can do register. But until unless mutation is done, the property is not transferred in your name, because this is a legal process. So most of the people and the end buyer doesn't know this whole process. And how they are doing it, how they are able to do that, how they are duping these end users. So what they are doing it, and if, since a lot of agricultural land they are grabbing, to make agricultural land to the non-agricultural land, to make them to change into the residential purpose, you also need a permission from the government, which they call in this case section 143. So until unless you don't have the section 143 permission from the district collector, you cannot build anything on agricultural land or any kind of land. So and to get this permission is again very tough. It's very, very tough, because to build agriculture, to getting this permission, you'll have to show to the district collector that this land, these services and these amenities has been has been, given like water, like electricity, and some other things, right? So what they are doing, if they are buying large chunk of land, for example, if they are buying 50 biga of land, so what they do, they try to convert just less than 1 biga of land, just 1 biga of land, because in that they will invest very little amount. And again, I would say this, that's why I call it perils of governance. Even the district magistrates are aware about it, that they are doing it. But again, they got a lot of money from these people, and how they can do that? They cannot do that without state eye. There are a lot of politicians, and many of these local developers, they have a lot of connection with the politicians. The politicians is basically also most of the time come from their caste, the privileged landowning caste. So that politicians also help them. So this is the information that you cannot ask these politicians. Definitely, they'll not give you. But this information I took it from lawyers, because they know the actual thing, because they are the people who are in the registration department. They are the people who are in the mutation department, and how things are happening, how different. They also named many politicians, and how these politicians are actually using this, these loopholes in the legal process in India. Also, the officials, how officials like basically Tehsildar, land revenue officers, they themselves are making the fake papers, and they are making the fake papers, and they are altering the papers. You cannot do that, without dealing with Tehsildar is one of the important official if you are doing anything, or anything with the land in UP, in any of the state altogether. So yes, the politicians and these people call this a quadrilateral framework. Like these politicians are coming, government officials are coming, bank financiers are also part of it, and then the local developers. But I see it is much more than that. I call it Hydra process, because it requires number of actors to do this process, to do this urban land grabbing, to do this registrations, and to take control over this land. And if you read this law, you'll get to understand how things are happening. In which this Tehsildar and assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner are paving a way for more irregularities, and instead of reducing them, because their basic purpose that there should not be any irregularity, but they become the kingpin of this whole process. So unless their hand is not there, the things cannot go ahead. But things are going ahead because they are the part and parcel of this whole process. So though I have named each and every participant with their permissions in this research, so if you see there's an informant, I have not given this name, and there's a reason behind it. And he told me that such officers have facilitated land scam either through negligence or direct involvement. And in this area, which is the National Capital Region, there have been multiple instances where officials, relying on the forged document, transferred government land to the developers for illegal development, and offer whatever the orders these officials are given. So sometimes it becomes very tough even for the state government not to accept them. And also, once the cases are going into the courts, it takes a lot of time. And by the time courts take decision in India, illegal colonies has been developed, properties has been sold, and even most of the time it has also been demolished. Like in the case we have seen in Lucknow, Kukrail case, 40 years, and the case was there in 1990s, and till the time, like today when I'm talking, court case is still there, but there is no colony as such, because the state government has demolished it without the court orders. So yes, so if I conclude it, so again, that how this informal land market in peri-urban Noida or peri-urban areas thrive on the collaboration with local developers, dominant caste landowners, and corrupt officials. And there are the fraudulent mutation processes, and how the local developers are exploiting these predatory practices in the legal process, and how they're actually exploiting buyers who actually need some foot in these developing cities in India. Some of the, of course, this requires a lot of policy changes in India. One thing is that which comes to my mind first is that we require land reform. So India got independence in 1947. So a lot of policies that we had. So one such policy that we had at that point of time, that land reform policy, where the land was supposed to be distributed to the landless people. But that dream is still not being fulfilled. Still, the landless situation in India is really high, literally very, very, very high. So since landless people are still being affected because of this process, one thing I would, in my paper, I've said the land distribution policies should resume, and there are few states which has done recently. For instance, Kerala, one of the state, has done that, but again, they have done it a very, not that much. They have not achieved that they should achieve at least. Like Bengal, we have some sort of landlessness situation has gone down, but still a lot more to done. For me, this land distribution policy, land distribution to these landless people should be at national level, and it has to be planned. It has not been, and even though we have seen, land acquisition bill, we have seen, even if we have a very positive policies in India. So in 2013, we had land acquisition policies, which is a national level policy. But we have seen that many state government has not implemented it. And there is a reason they have not implemented, because under constitution, land is not under the central government's power. Land is under state government's power. So even if we have these central policies for these landless people, it is always dependent on the whims and fancies of the states. So that's why this land acquisition bill, for me, it is a very futuristic bill. But number of state, I would say 80% of the state, they have not implemented land acquisition bill, because the two aspect of that bill is really important. Now it has become the act. Is very important. One is the socio impact assessment. So if you do the socio impact assessment, once the land has been acquired by the state, you will not only give compensation to the people whose land has been acquired, also the people who were dependent on that. So that is again one of the things. Second is the ecological impact assessment. So many of these states are not implementing these policies because now, special economic zone. These Adanis and Ambanis and many other investors are coming and they're investing in this money. So if you will implement it, they'll have to have these two criteria fulfilled. So they have not implemented it. Second thing, again, that is the primary thing though. And I told you that if you want to buy a Dalit land, you need to take a permission from the state. You need to take a permission from the district magistrate. And because the inequality level is rising in India and landless situation is really rising. Even knowing that, recently in Uttar Pradesh government, where this case study is based, they has phonetically come up with this new policy where actually they are willing to do away with this process. Oh, now we do not require any more, any more permission from the district magistrate. So anyone can buy Dalit land. Anyone can buy anyone's land. It may look very, it's fine. But in India, it is not the same case that you understand. Because many of you might be aware that in India, there was a Ram Mandir case. So Ram Mandir, the current, the government who's in power right now in India, their fundamental genesis is then that they were protesting again that they should have the Ram Mandir. And now there is a Ram Mandir. But if you see, after the Ram Mandir development, many of the villages has been demolished. And most of those villages are scheduled caste villages, coming from a different caste, from different scheduled caste, Dalit caste, lower caste, right? After that, they have said, and now there was a case. Again, this one thing happened in India, that most of the case goes to the court and the court doesn't deliver any directive on time. So, and again, the big investors has invested in the surroundings of this Ayodhya, where the Ram temple is located, and they have nowhere to go. They have literally the people who used to have their own villages, now they do not have any land. And the government has not given them any compensation. So this land grabbing phenomena, there are many more in this research. I would be happy to take questions, so that I can give you more nuances if I can. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ajay, for the presentation. And now we can have some questions and hopefully Ajay will be able to clarify. But maybe I go to Chico for, I know you asked a question. Did you get answered adequately for the question? I think there's some things which were missed out. Chico, do you want to say that again? And-
No, I think the that's fine, the answer. My broad reaction here is it's really fascinating social phenomenon that's going on. But it looks to me like, I mean, from a position of ignorance from the outside,
Okay.
it would be nice to see some sort of taxonomy
Okay.
of the different kinds of transactions that are going on, because it seems there are many different things, right? It seems, for example, there could be state-owned land that some corrupt public official is transferring to some other use, and so there's a loss to the public. There could be this or some other source in connection with defrauding buyers.
Yeah.
In the sense that buyers are buying something that will be demolished in a short time because it's built in an illegal place. So they're the victims of the buyers. But the government can be the landowner, but also farmers can be landowners. And then sometimes you described one that was a high cost farmer that was bringing the developers himself.
Of their own cost, yes.
So then he's not losing, presumably somebody else is losing, but then there's the Dalit guy who couldn't sell. So there's a configuration of different buyers and sellers,
Yes.
and the losers and gainers of the illegal transactions differ, right? Now, maybe that's all in the paper, but to me today, it would have been useful to see a clear distinction of the different kinds of transactions that go on and who benefits and loses from each of those. But maybe you want to say something about that.
I mean, yeah, so one thing, and very short answer for that is that if, again, as I've already mentioned, the losers are always the people who were landless, right? Landless. And the losers are the people who come from a lower caste, who are not the dominant landlord caste. Lower caste, even the underprivileged caste, like Dalit. Dalits are the people who historically been the untouchable. So even if as I mentioned in this case, even if the Dalit has the land, still he will have to face the challenges to sell his land. He cannot sell it. And if he has some sort of a land, then these farmers now who has become developers, they will coerce him, they will force him, they will beat him up to get his land. So in this case, the people, mostly the landless people, mostly the Dalits, lower caste people, they are always loser in this case. And the people who has historically had some sort of a caste privilege, some sort of a land privilege, they are the beneficiary. And this is not only my research, that the other researchers are saying the same thing. But their research is that they make their judgment on the basis of research they are doing on the farmer caste, because there lot is happening around farmers in India, like farmers movement, farmer this, farmer that. But what about the people who are the agricultural labor to those farmers? So what I'm saying, these Dalits are basically agricultural labor to the farmers, which recently that I mentioned the PM bills, they actually mentioned that even the agricultural laborer should be given this tag of farmer. And it plays a very important role, because if you become the farmer, you will get many benefits from the government subsidies and everything. So losers, and this is that is a part of this paper. Of course, in few of the paper that I'm writing, one thing is specifically about the land is speculation, which I'm working on, will give very clear idea about that.
Which is, I think, how the farmers who now don't farm their land
Yes.
are also turning into developers,
Yeah.
because there are policies or there's an opportunity, especially in areas which are changing. So that's why you have multiple players in this whole thing that he was describing. I know we have some people online, and so please raise your hand if you want to ask questions. Those are online. I don't see any hands as such, so I'm going to come back to the room. Anyone else wants any question?
Yes.
Sanghavitra.
Hi, very, very interesting story. I have a really simple question, and I think I know the answer, but I
Okay.
might be wrong. So you mentioned that many of these low cost landowners,
Yes.
when they leave the land, or whether they were farmers or not, when they join the whole nexus of
They are forced to join it.
Well, they're forced. And they're forced by the land developers.
They are
rich
forced by the land
farmers.
developers. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So you mentioned that they're unable to become a land developer. They always become a broker.
Yes, they cannot, because there's a different. Now the farmers has become the developers. So farmer community in India, the caste-based community, right? So even the developer community is a caste-based community in India. So that is again a different urbanization process that we are seeing in India. A lot of research says that urbanization is a very equalizer factor, but in India it is not an equalizer factor. So the farmers has become the rentier, they become the rentiers, they become the developers also. So to become the developer, you need to have their own caste, their caste basically.
So suppose I'm this landless Dalit,
Hmm.
and I want to become a land developer. I want to become a developer.
Hmm.
So what would be the actual mechanics of me being prevented to become a developer? Is it the lack of capital, or is it literally I'm going to get
Even if you
enough?
have a capital, you cannot sustain. You cannot sustain, because again, there is a network, there is one person who is just one person, and there is thousands of people. So even if you want to sell your property, they will, they will create a system that your property will not be sold.
Right.
So this is happening. This is one of the case that I've seen, which is in Narendra, the only small local developer that this place has produced. But he was developer just for 2-3 years, and after 3 years, he was killed.
Oh,
Yes.
So it is violence.
Yeah, this violence. That's what I'm saying. The violence is also there. So it is very hard. And that the person that I'm saying, Narendra, who became the developer, he came from because even though he was Dalit, but his father was a politician, because in India we have the reservation policies, right? So to become the member of parliament, or to become the member of legislative assembly, so some seats are allocated to different castes. So one is a scheduled caste. So this Narendra was a son of a politician. So now you can understand. So these developer has killed him. So it's hard. Broker is anyone can.
Thank you.
That counts as an enforcement mechanism.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I think just while we're waiting for others to formulate their questions, I think from what Ajay is describing for me, and it's a normal thing in India, you have everything on paper, you have a lot of policies. Although he says we need comprehensive reforms, maybe tweaking is necessary. But in terms of the documents he showed, or there are nationwide action plan, there's a state action plan. So policies exist on paper, but very often it's the implementation of those policies that are challenging or complex or difficult, like land grabbing, or in a way, not entirely legal. So in that, the phenomenon, this is also what the question Sangamitra raised, is, and in his context, the context of this example is neither really urban nor rural. It's sort of more peri-urban. And again, I think there will be bigger differences between fully developed urban compared to these examples he gave, which is peri-urban. And on the other hand, that region he's talking about has grown rapidly in the last 25 years. That's why National Capital Region, which means the capital, Delhi, which is a union territory or a state in itself, is very developed. And within Delhi itself, you have different pockets. You have South Delhi, which is more the old Le Corbusier's Delhi architecture. Then you have new parts, which are like modern, looks like somewhere in New York, maybe. So you have those newer developments, and then you have the capital region, or the extended, let's say, zone 6 of London, which is more the peri-urban. And the examples he's taken is from there. So you have these characteristics of both urban and rural mechanisms, behaviors happening in how land is being grabbed or misused, or how people are being exploited. But the phenomenon is still the concepts of what he was describing in the relationships is networks. It's how these networks work. So these are networks between people or I also thought of the word, the dominance of social hierarchies. Yeah. So it's pretty much how the social hierarchies are still dominating, and they dominate much more in rural and peri-urban atmosphere, then they become a little weaker in an urban setting. And when India is going through this massive development, urbanization process in the last 25 years, such as the golden quadrangle.
Yeah.
So this is how the connection and the connectivity, the roads between cities, all the way to the rural, with lots of peri-urban spaces happening. This is then creating all these dynamics that we saw described by talking to people in terms of what's happening in the region. But in principle, it's the same. It's these, but I was using social hierarchies, but then there are components of economics as well, economic dominance as well. If you are wealthier, you're able to, you have the resources to do some things. Or if you have the social or the networks, both social and economic and political networks, where you have a politician, father, and a son who has the ability to dominate those who don't have those kind of situations, social status. And so, although like in principle, Dalits, there is this law which says Dalit land can only be bought by Dalits or by the state with permission from the Dalits. But what's actually happening is different. Do those disadvantaged community have a chance to say no? Probably not. They probably have very little independent choice to say no when they're dominated by social and economic and political hierarchies. That's what I gathered from what he's just described to us very interestingly with case studies and talking to people. So any other questions, clarifications, comments from your own countries maybe? Because we have a very diverse group of people from different parts of the world. Yes.
I mean, this is not about Australia, which might not be very interesting. It is about your
Why not?
research.
It is very interesting.
So you talk to all of these really different groups who I might have expected to have different interpretations and perspectives on the process. So I wondered if you could talk a bit about that, whether there were conflicting accounts of these process from people in different structural positions in relation to the process, or whether everyone had a really clear-eyed sense of the same process.
I mean, the people that I have interviewed and had word with them, they understand what is actually happening. So my simple question, the only one question that I was with them in the field is that what is actually happening? Why these illegal colonies are developing? You know, how is it possible? Who are the people who are developing? So it is very simple. I mean, everyone knows it. Like if you talk the same thing with the broker will give you the information. Of course, if you are talking to a developer, they will not give you the enough information, you know, because this is again, if you see, it is against developers, right? But they know it. They tell you that, okay, yeah, this is the way that we are doing it. So yeah, I mean, everyone was at the same pace except these officials. Officials were not able to give me the information that I was actually I wanted. That's why I use one word which is informant. It was official only. So I did not use this word. He gave me a lot of information about it. And also few politicians who are not the current politician. So again, the current politicians will not give me the information what is happening currently. But the previous politician will give me the information who is not from the same party. So again, you know, but they know it. But the current district magistrate has told me or gave me the information. Yes, because, and again, it's good at their part that they're actually understanding and they're actually accepting the fact that these cynical activities are actually happening. And they know it. And they also told me, okay, state is taking these actions, that action, you know, but officials are officials. They do not do that. Yeah. But yes, it was easy. I mean, I didn't find any other problem except they were asking my caste. Yeah. Yeah. So that was something, it is really tough. The moment you talk to anyone in India for research, first they will ask you your caste. So being researchers, we don't have any caste, you know. Yeah.
Any examples from Brazil?
No, but I have another question. You were interested in particular on the landless people and what happened to them.
Yes.
Do you have any quantitative or qualitative comparison of their well-being before and after? Like, do we know if they are poorer, or maybe some of them become workers in building this thing and may even be better off? Do we know?
Yes, yes, it is. In the last paper that I did about this impact of COVID-19 on petty landlords. So it is not like even petty landlords, again, a different, the landowners can become the landlords, which is the big landlords. But there are few people basically coming from this Dalit caste. They become the petty landlords in Delhi specifically. Now, the case study is really important. They became petty landlords in Delhi. And why they became petty landlord? It is because the policies, particularly the reservation policies. Because of the reservation policies in the education, reservation policies in the job market or in the government job, and with land reform policy. So during 1970s, we had few land distribution policies, 1970s, long back, 50 years back. So few sections of the society in Delhi, they got hold over few parcels of the land. It was not a big land that they had. It was just government gave them which we call in India patta, like 100 square meter plot, right? To the people who were landless. Now, over the period of time, the three things are happening here. One, they got land from the government. Second, because of the reservation policy, they got the education, and because of the reservation policy, they came into the job. So once they got retired in 1990s after 35 years of their job in government services, giving their government services, they got a lot of retirement compensation that we get, right? So using that compensation, using that retirement benefit from the government after 40 years, in 2000, they build small parcel, small parcels, or they started the construction in 2000, which the landlord started doing 40 years back in 1960s. So this case study I did in surrounding of the university, Jawaharlal Nehru University, IITs in India. So again, it's also the case, where the situation is, it is not the all India phenomena, but some parcel you definitely can get it. But there are the different aspect which is working behind it. So even if you are a petty landlord, it doesn't mean that you are a big landlord. So the comparison between big landlord here, big landlord means the historical landlord. So now they have become the rentier landlord. So they have around 100 rooms to rent. But these petty landlords, they just had 2 rooms or 3 rooms set. But I use this word for them that they are landlords, and how COVID-19 has affected them, because they did not have the power to sustain COVID-19. But the big landlord has power. They had money to sustain that for a long term, because COVID-19 for India, it went for more than 1.5 years. So it was long journey for them. And even though government has actually promised them, in the Delhi government in this case, Aam Aadmi Party that we have currently, he promised them that you will be given, the rental vouchers, or you will be given reimbursement for your rent. But again, that false promises or the promises fallen. Nothing has happened actually. So some case studies are there.
I think I was going to call on George, who's online, if he had anything to comment. George, do you want to say anything? You can turn on your camera. Also, if you are online, if you wish to.
No, I'm online.
Go with us.
Thanks, Gautam, Ajay, for the good talk. Very interesting talk. I had one question about land redistribution. I was wondering what would be the economic viability of redistributing land to the landless. If one calculation showed that if we were to go for redistribution, a landless person might get 0.5 acre of land. So in what way would it be economically viable to continue with this policy of land redistribution among the landless?
First of all, thank you so much for your question. Well, we do not have land distribution policy right now in India. But what could be the economic viability is that even the person who doesn't have any land, if he gets some sort of a land, of course, it will create a huge progress in his life. That is something that I've also mentioned in the last question that Chico has asked, that even having this 100 square meter of plot, it actually created a lot of good things in their life, even though it took some time.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it's time now because we know LSE room.
Yeah.
Room, time, space. So thank you very much to Ajay
Thank you
for
so
the
much.
seminar and to
Thank you.
all of you and those online who've joined for the seminar and engaged quite actively. But he's going to be here till end of April. So do have those conversations beyond today as well. So once again, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, to be here again.
All right.